Monday, May 13th. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Damon Bruce, Larry Krueger, day after Mother's Day. Had a good one in the house. Good Mother's Day in your house, Larry?
Absolutely. We went for a nice little family bike ride, and it was a good day. We had a nice little made a nice little breakfast for my wife and the kids, and had we just have two of them in the house, and had a nice little went to church, did a little family bike ride.
It's the ultimate dad move. You know what you get, honey? Breakfast. There you go. It never fails. Good breakfast helps everyone get going. Thank you so much for being here. Please like and subscribe. And I guess, Larry, we can officially now welcome everybody to NFL schedule release week. It's going to happen. We're going to get it on Wednesday. And the only thing that we know for certain right now, unless there's been, more leaked news in the last 15 minutes and I haven't been online, our first game of the 2024 NFL season is going to be Thursday, September 5th. Ravens at the Chiefs, a rematch of last season's AFC title game. And that sounds like an awfully fun way to kick off the football season.
It's funny how these non-events have turned into events. It makes me wonder if we came back in 25 years, would there be a huge, to do about the announcement of the compensatory picks or something, something that today is kind of like
compensatory pick Wednesday, everybody.
Welcome. Today, people are sleeping in line outside the NFL's offices in New York City, waiting for the announcement of when the comp picks will be released, the full list of what you get for signing and losing free agents. I mean, think about this. This used to be a nothing day. I don't know when the hell the day was. It was just in the paper. Hey, it was in the paper this morning. The 49ers schedule's out. Oh, really? Oh, yeah, it's cool. Now it's like, literally, it's like one of the biggest. The NFL Network will turn it into like 3 days of programming. And the most asinine thing will be two NFL Network hosts sitting in a studio in LA saying, all right, it's week 13, Falcons at Panthers. Who do you like?
Who do you like?
It's like, who do I like? I don't know who I like when the game's actually 3 days away. I really don't know who I like. And what a pointless discussion in a sport that has mass injuries to discuss matchups and who you like to win, months in advance when there could be an injury 3 days prior that changes the outlook of the entire game.
Look, Larry, I don't claim to be a gambling expert, but I really insist on seeing a roster before I start placing any bets. I demand to know who may or may not be playing, and obviously we're way too far away from week 13 to know anything about that. But we do have Baltimore's first game at Arrowhead since 2019. The Ravens actually haven't even won in Kansas City since 2012. That's 5 years before Mahomes made his pro debut back in 2012. Just to jog everybody's mind back to a common touch point, the number one song in America in 2012, Larry, was Somebody That I Used to Know. Remember that song? That was like an earworm that would get in your mind all day. So it's been an awful long time since we've seen Lamar or any Ravens team go into Arrowhead. It's been a long time, even longer time, since they've won in there. And like this game, I'll tell you right now, this game has Ravens actually winning the game written all over it in the same season that Kansas City goes on to three-peat as Super Bowl champions, and the Ravens are a first-round exit again, right? So
it's interesting. I mean, last year, wasn't it Detroit and Kansas City?
Yeah.
Usually they try to come up with what they think is the hot matchup. It's interesting, maybe because the Chiefs have beaten the Niners in 2 Super Bowls, they don't view the Niners as the hot matchup. Maybe they view Baltimore as, maybe the public is tired of Kansas City beating the Niners, and they want to see something else. Should that be a message to the 49ers that they're not involved in the kickoff classic, that it's the Ravens instead? I will say this. I predicted the Chiefs to beat the Ravens in Baltimore last year in the playoffs. And I will always take the Chiefs over the Ravens just simply because Patrick Mahomes can throw it or run it. And Lamar just seems like as soon as you get a lead on him and everybody knows that he has to pass it, they're pretty ordinary. So I don't know.
Well,
It's a good organization. Eric DeCosta is a terrific GM. They always have great, they always have representative talent. John Harbaugh's a good coach. Lamar's an MVP, but Lamar in the playoffs is like 1-5 or something like that. I mean, he doesn't win in the playoffs. So
right. Imagine for just a millisecond, Brock Purdy had Lamar Jackson's playoff record.
Right. We would never hear the end of it. He can't win the big one. He can't do it. He can't. But because it's Lamar, it's like, oh, well, that's just a little that might as well be some oddity, in the bio or something.
Give that guy an MVP, even though he's got passing numbers from an NFL of 15 years ago. It's so. But anyways, he was a fine MVP. I don't have a problem with it.
But when they fall behind, they're cooked.
A little bit. Yeah. They're kind of like the Niners in a way that they're front runners, and the Niners maybe disproved that a little bit in the playoffs when they fell behind and still ended up making it to the Super Bowl, especially over the Lions. But you're right. The NFL tries to cook up a big opening game for that Thursday nighter, which I really don't know why they go out of their way to do that, because let's be totally honest, it's the first football game of the year. You could take the worst game of the week, make it the first game of the week, and 25 million people are going to show up and watch that thing. But they want to start with their best foot forward. And when it comes to the Niners, Larry, I got my first official rumor of 2024 for you. We'll find out if I'm right on Wednesday. But the reason why we might not be seeing the 49ers first is because in week 1, we might see the 49ers last. There is a rumor out there coming from Dallas that the 49ers are going to open with the Dallas Cowboys week 1 Sunday Night Football. And if they do
at Levi's, right?
At Levi's. Yes.
Yeah.
So if they do that, you can't come up with a bigger football game than that. That will be an absolute Sunday night ratings monster if this is indeed the first game for both of those teams this year. Just a rumor out there, but 49ers hosting the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football could be the week 1 matchup. Interesting.
I think the Cowboys are going the other way. I think that's a big Niner victory in week 1. I think Dallas is going. I think they're backsliding. I mean, they don't have a running back. They've had 2 pretty subpar drafts back to back. They still have a lot of talent on their roster, but I think they're backsliding. I think I wouldn't take them in the top 5 in the NFC. I don't believe I would as far as Super Bowl contenders. I'd go Detroit, Niners, Green Bay, for sure the top 3. Then Philly, and I probably would take Atlanta with Cousins over Dallas. I'm not a
Tampa before them, but yeah, I mean,
maybe Tampa, maybe Seattle, maybe the Rams, maybe the Commanders if they get off if Jaden Daniels is a precocious rookie. Yeah, I mean, there's I don't like Dallas. I think Dallas is backslid. I mean, who's their back?
Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah, well, good luck with that.
Let me know how that goes. Levi Stadium, he was snapping a ball from the center position with nobody within a country mile around him on the dumbest last play of a football game I think the Cowboys have ever run. So we'll see. We will see if indeed the rumor that Sunday nighter is there. But look, the NFL wants to come roaring in with its first game on a Thursday night. There would be no bigger roar than Niners Cowboys on Sunday Night Football if that indeed is going to happen. So we'll keep an eye out.
It also makes you wonder if the Niners are going to wind up playing 2 Thursdays later in the year. Like, is it possible the Niners play in London? And if so, do they play the previous game on a Thursday to give them extra rest? Also, it seems like Thanksgiving. Are the Niners going to be playing on Thanksgiving? So there's a lot of talk the Niners will be playing twice on Thursdays. Usually every team in the league's got one Thursday. So maybe if they put them in the kickoff, game on Thursday, that would mean 3 Thursdays, and that would maybe bastardize the schedule. I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, here's the deal, though. If you're, well, no, so they're not playing the first Thursday. The first Thursday night game is the best Thursday night game to play.
Sure.
That's the one you want. So
you're already getting a week of vacation. There's there's 2 weeks between the final preseason game and week 1. So you're fully rested and you're fully healthy.
So there is what we got for you in terms of this week and how it's going to roll out. We have our first game, Ravens at Chiefs, Thursday, September 5th. The rest of the schedule will be announced. I believe it's 5 p.m. on Wednesday. Is that 5 p.m. our time or East Coast? It feels like it would be 8 o'clock East Coast. Maybe they're going to try to make a primetime event out of that. Either way, Larry, let me know if you want to go live. Maybe we'll even move Wake Up to the afternoon, because that's really the story on Wednesday, right?
I guess, or it would take us a few minutes to analyze the whole thing and then go with it. But yeah, we could be ready to fire on Wednesday, talking nothing but who's playing who and when.
Look at this week. Look at this. Look, Larry, look at this game.
Week 12, Green Bay back on the road. It's just like,
but no, look, it does matter.
It's a big nothing burger for the most part. I mean, it's really important to the coaches. It's really important. As I said, I mean, for the 49ers, I think you should be looking at 2 things, really. When do you play your hot weather? Because you play in Miami and Tampa, and then you play in Green Bay and Buffalo. So you're playing in some of the hottest and coldest places. Right. When? Are you playing the cold teams, the cold weather games early in the year when there won't be cold weather games? Are you playing the hot weather games late in the year when the weather won't be so hot? Or are you getting potentially 4 really difficult weather games? And that, to me, is going to speak volumes about the difficulty of the schedule. And the other one is, do the Niners play in London? Do they get Minnesota in London? They haven't had a lot of success with the Vikings playing them in Minnesota. They're slated to play them in Minnesota in that dome. If that game gets moved to Niners Vikings in London, it's been rumored in a couple spots, I think that's another advantage for the 49ers to get, because then they're going to be, they'll be playing that game in London. They don't have to play in that dome. Of course, they don't have Kirk Cousins anymore.
Look, all away games kind of felt like home games, but that is a home game for the 49ers. You couldn't get further away to play a football game from Santa Clara than in London, but that's a home game for the Niners, not the Vikings, if that does go off over in London. So
those are big factors there. That's 5 games. And then as I said to you,
when's your bye week? And
when's your bye? But then to me, the bigger one is this story, is the revelation of last year when Warren Sharp wrote the article about rest. To me, the rest factor is the most important factor in the NFL that nobody ever talks about. You should always, before you bet any game, you should always know the rest equation between the 2 teams. Is one team, are they on equal rest? Does one team have an extra day? An extra day means a lot. You can do a lot of preparation in an extra day. And then it's like, okay, if it's not an extra day, is it an extra 2 days? Is there literally an example where there's an extra week or 10 days or as many as 13 days? So those things, I think, are vitally important. And it's like one of those things where, some things in football or in sports, you say, well, it all evens out. No, this does not even out. This will not even out. It may even out over the course of 25 years, but it's not going to even out this year. So to me, that's a major part of the schedule as well, is who's got the rest advantage, who did the league kind of favor this year? Because if they give you the rest advantage in a bunch of games, that's the equivalent of kind of favoring you in some ways.
It's good to have you here. Like and subscribe. Thank you for joining us for Wake Up. And Larry, I've been wanting to talk to you since this weekend rolled around, because you were able to make it down to minicamp. I've read, I think, every article. I've watched a lot of videos that have been produced from minicamp. But there's no eye that I trust more than yours. So let me just ask you, Don't empty the entire bucket here. I want a specific answer. And this is a Rorschach test. So I guess the first thing that pops into your mind is the correct answer. What is the biggest impression that you took away from minicamp? Either, a player, a moment. What's the single thing that stayed with you the most from minicamp where you actually think you learned something?
Well, okay. First of all, you got to know what you're watching. All right. You're watching players who don't know the system, and you're also watching only rookies or second-year guys who were on the practice squad. So, you have to factor that in when you're talking about, how do the receivers look in this camp? A lot of people are debating that.
Right.
Well, they looked good. But the quarterbacks, I mean, one of the guys there was from Davidson College or something like that, and he looked really raw. The other was Tanner Mordecai. But, I mean, Brock Purdy wasn't out there. So, I've heard people say, Ricky Pearsall looked terrible. No, he didn't. He did not look terrible by any stretch. I don't know why anybody would even go there. And stop giving me fucking camp stats. If I got to listen to one more person throw out camp stats, I'm going to puke. Camp stats mean shit.
Larry, he was targeted.
And OTA and rookie minicamp stats mean less. So stop giving me your camp stats. I mean, I'm going to get really pissed this summer. And this happened last summer where it's like somebody bust out their camp stats and it's like the end all be all. Or, this guy looked terrible against the Raiders from 2 fields away. Who cares? I mean, I think it's pretty clear at this point that, you want to evaluate practice, but not on that level. It should be more about conditioning and movement. It should not be about success ratios and stats. Right. You had 3 tackles. You had 3 tackles, Damon. You had 3 tackles. How was Blankety Blank's practice? He had 3 tackles.
Did they look connected? Did they look like they would be able to function together? Well, they just met yesterday. Everyone literally met each other for the first time on Friday. This is the
Nobody
first
knows any plays
together. Yeah, they don't know each other, the playbook, the routes, the patterns, or anything about anyone's instincts or habits. But it should all look really good in day one. I mean, it's
it's like, and they targeted him 4 times, but they didn't complete any passes. There was a couple passes where Ricky Pearsall came out, ran a phenomenal little pattern, turned his head, waited for the ball, and the ball sailed so far over his hands that he didn't even really jump. Now you could look at that and be like, poor effort. He didn't even jump, but it was such a bad pass that it wasn't even worthy of jumping for. So as far as like what stood out the most, I think what stood out the most to me was Malik Mustafa. Malik Mustafa is a tremendous talent. He's built like kind of like a thicker linebacker type guy. He's 5, whatever he is, 5'10", 210 or something like that, 5'11", 210. He's not big. He looks thick, but then he moves with confidence. He looked like he was mastering every drill. To me, he was the most impressive looking individual on the defensive side for sure. I mean, he just looks like a guy who's ready to play right now. And he's got better movement ability than you would ever believe somebody that size would have. He's talking out there. He's kind of an alpha. He's a leader as he was billed. So he looked the best as far as him and Renardo Green. I thought, they are the alpha type personalities, and you could kind of see that on the practice field. And then I would say the other guy that really stood out to me was Dominic Pooney, the offensive lineman from Kansas, who's just, he's big, he's fast. There's a nastiness kind of to him. He's really strong, but also has great lower body, feet and quickness and movement ability. He looks like a guy who could come in and take that right guard job. So to me, I felt like I was looking at 2 starters there. Mustafa could start at safety for sure, and there's no question that Pooney could start at right guard.
In terms of just physical prowess, whose size or lack thereof stood out to you?
Whose size? I would say, well, I mean, Mason Pline is 6'8". He's a 6'8" tight end. So, but he's also got upper body strength. Like I was expecting to see kind of a basketball linear build, a guy who's just going to get blown away. No, not at all. This guy's got guns. This guy's got, big, strong looking upper body. Like he's been working out in the weight room. I thought he caught the ball well. The other thing I always look for in the minicamp is who's getting coached the hardest, because there's guys there that aren't even going to be there in a couple of weeks. So you're not coaching these guys hard because they're not even going to be there in a couple of weeks. The guys who get coached the hardest are the guys that they have the most belief in. And Brian Fleury, the tight end coach, was coaching Pline hard. Just making comments on every single one of his movements out there. So they're hoping to get him up to speed in a really thin tight end core, as I think they're tight end too, potentially.
It's the thinnest position group on the team right now, wouldn't you say, tight end?
Well, it's the most unproven because you have no idea what Latu is or Braden Willis. So, you got Kittle, and then you've got some. You might have better talent than you've had in the past because Warner couldn't catch at all, and Dwelly couldn't block at all. So they were like half a linebacker or half a tight end each. So you had Kittle, and then you had a blocker who couldn't catch and a receiver who couldn't block. Now you have Kittle, but you have Latu in year 2, Willis in year 2, and now they've got this Mason Pline kid who's 6'8" with great hands, and he's really smart. So I don't know. I think it's actually maybe better in some ways, but yeah, as far as proven guys, the most unknown group is tight end for sure.
Tanner Mordecai, did you see anything out of him, Larry, that you think, means that he's going to actually push either Josh Dobbs or Brandon Allen for a spot on this team?
Yeah, I did. The same trait that I saw from Purdy a couple summers ago, I saw from Mordecai here, which was he's a veteran. He's played a lot of college football. He is mastering all these drills. There's nothing they're asking him to do that he looks just calm, cool, collected, almost borderline bored out there. So that's what I'm looking for. He doesn't have the touch or the loft or his ball he doesn't throw the ball. He comes out on time and he's got some zip, but he doesn't have great touch. And on his deep ball looks flat, like flatter, kind of like Trey Lance's deep ball used to look like. He doesn't drop it in the bucket. It's a flatter pass. So he needs some improvement in his touch and everything. But as far as just, command, in control, very calm, knowledgeable, he's got a lot of the same things that Purdy has because he's played a lot of football and it shows.
Running back Cody Schrader, 54 games. I saw this from a column in the Merc by Dieter Kurtenbaugh. In 54 college games, he had 5,456 rushing yards, 62 rushing touchdowns, 101 catches for 825 receiving yards, 2 more touchdowns he caught in the air. And just based on the success that this team has had with undrafted running backs, Kyle Shanahan's had with undrafted running backs, and how totally obviously out of love and untrusted Elijah Mitchell and Jordan Mason were by Shanahan last year. I think like the thumbnail for my 11 o'clock show is one of these guys is getting cut, and it's a picture of Elijah Mitchell and JP Mason. One of those guys, maybe both of those guys, depending on how they really feel about Garendo, won't be on the team.
Well, I'm not sure about that. As far as trust, I think Shanahan definitely trusts Elijah Mitchell because he uses him his utilization the last couple of years is in huge moments. Yes, he's got McCaffrey. McCaffrey's an MVP, and so he's going to go with McCaffrey more. But like, I think in an ideal world, the Niners play McCaffrey in the first half, get a nice little lead, get to the fourth quarter, and hand it to Elijah Mitchell because he doesn't fumble and he maximizes almost every run. So I think he's actually a trusted agent of Shanahan. Now, Mason, on the other hand, I think is clearly not trusted. He's got huge talent
this year.
He's got huge talent, but he has fumbled a couple times in practice, maybe a few times too many, and he just doesn't get on the field ever. So you can't really say that they trust him because he doesn't have a role. This running back thing's going to be interesting though, because like Cody Schrader didn't look like much, but that's the deal with Cody Schrader. He doesn't look like much. You're not going to appreciate Cody Schrader till we get to the preseason. There's going to be people this summer be like, yeah, he just doesn't look like much. Yeah, he doesn't look like much. He's 5'10". He's 215 pounds. He doesn't look like a ton. But what he is really instinctive, really talented. There was a quote from a scout who said, good luck getting that guy out of your building once he's in. In other words, once he's in your building, he's going to win everybody over because he's going to work really hard and he's going to be a culture player and everybody's going to love him and every coach is going to love him. And, it's one thing if you can't get him in the building, but once you get him in the building, you're never getting him out of the building, because he's just always going to be an example of high effort and so on and so forth. So I thought Schrader didn't look like much, but I wasn't expecting him to look like much. Garendo, on the other hand, looks so different. I thought if there was one player that looked so different than what he looks like in the draft lead-up videos, it's him. Now, when you watch him at Louisville, he's either playing with the all-whites, which the all-whites kind of give you kind of an interesting look as far as, it's an interesting uniform look. Then they also went with the white pants and the red top. And when you watch him in those red top, white pants unis, he looks so top heavy. He just looks like a gigantic wide body fullback type guy. Watching him on the practice field, he's much taller and more angular and more athletic. You can see he's got really strong legs, really strong, girdle. he's got an engine there. And when he gets loose, he's gone. So he's an explosive athlete, and you can see that on the practice field. He doesn't necessarily show that 4.33 speed when he first gets the ball, but when he really opens it up, he gets 3 steps. All of a sudden, it's like, wow, you can see this guy's really cooking. So yeah, that was kind of exciting. I don't know that he's a running back. He might be I don't know what he is. He was a high school receiver. He looks like a fullback. He plays running back, but I would say he's probably more of a receiver / blocker than he is like a real runner.
So that's what you saw on Saturday. Friday, you got
Friday, actually.
Oh, excuse me. Friday. You got your first impression of Nick Sorensen. He sat down with the media as defensive coordinator for the first time in that press room. What were your impressions of him? I know he had an awful lot to say about Renardo Green, and they're going to look inside for him at nickel before they ask him to move outside, where he's played his entire college career. What were your impressions of Sorensen? I heard he's like soft-spoken.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. They weren't good, that's for sure. He just didn't answer my questions. I asked him direct questions. I'm going to share the screen. I'm going to let you listen to one of them so you can hear for yourself this guy dodging these questions. It's like all I want is an answer. Give me an answer. Just give me an answer. And I didn't get an answer.
No, maybe his first time around as, in a press setting, he didn't want to give too much away, or, he doesn't want Shanahan telling him to shut up or something. I don't know. Let's go ahead and have a listen.
Yeah, let's have a listen here.
Oh, he's not even at the podium. He's sitting down in the seat.
Well, yeah, this was after. I'll give you two of them, but this is the one. This is a very direct question. Listen,
Nick, why did the run D kind of take a step back last year? Seemed like in the Detroit game, you guys got pushed around a lot up front, and they climbed to the second level and were picking off your linebackers. What happened to the run D from 2 years ago to last year, and what's your thoughts on it going into this year?
In that game, they got us a couple times. We've evaluated that, and we're going to fix that part of the game and those type of runs. That's what we've kind of focused on.
that was the answer. To me, that's not really an answer, but whatever. I mean, it's you know, I don't know. I don't know. To me, it's like I would have rather him said, "Hey, you know what? We thought it was partly scheme, partly personnel. We feel like we've addressed it, but we also have addressed it with some of the players we've added." You know what I mean? Something along the lines of a complete answer. That was a non-answer as far as I was concerned.
Right.
I mean, that's not an answer.
Yeah, he didn't need. He certainly he illuminated nothing about why they might have struggled last year, and gave you no inkling of how they're about to improve.
Right.
But sharing strategy with the media or past team evaluations with the media really isn't the job. I mean, if he goes out there and he gets it done, on the field, no one will care about the quality of his press conferences or how, evasive he is about any one particular question or anything. The proof will be in the pudding. That's what really matters here. You said you had a second video? What else you got?
Yeah, here's another one. Okay, let me see if I can share the screen on this one, and you can see for yourself. Okay.
Do you expect those guys to contend?
Okay. This is actually this is a good answer. I asked him about Graham and Winters, and he basically shows his hand as far as who's the lead to replace Dre Greenlaw.
Nick, last year you guys drafted Winters and Graham, and they looked really good in the preseason. They didn't play a lot as the season went on. How do you evaluate their rookie year? And with Greenlaw out, do you expect those guys to contend for that starting spot opposite Fred?
We always wanted to be competitive. We got Devondre Campbell, another really good sign for us. The guy's been a really good player in the league for a long time. He's been a Pro Bowler. We're excited about that, but also with the development of Jalen Graham and D, the way that those guys play. Again, Jalen played more of, he was a high school quarterback. He was more of like a safety type that played more out of the box, like Fred Warner did, that you kind of move in. So sometimes, with him, it's just making that transition. Then D has come a long way too. Now we love his play style. He plays fast. He's physical. And I think both those guys so far, what we've seen, they just continue to grow, and want to see them compete once we get to these next couple of weeks and then into training camp.
Nick,
that's actually a good answer, because he kind of gave us something there. It's like, hey, Devondre Campbell is kind of the guy. You know what I mean? They brought him in to be the guy, and they view him as the guy. And not that the other guys don't have a shot, but you know what I'm saying? It's like he's
right
there. He's getting the first go around. Here's the other one. There's one other I wanted to show.
I do know this too, that Sorensen, there's only one guy that's got to walk away liking that first press conference of his, and it's Kyle Shanahan, right? Like that's the only that he's really playing to an audience of one more than anything else. By the way, I don't know if it's the position or the angle right there.
What is it that
Larry, is this the longest neck since Merton Hanks was on the team? This man looks like he's 15%, like neck is 15% of his height. That's a long neck.
What if that'd been my question? Nick, do you come from a long lineage of long-necked people? Because you seem like you have a very long neck.
Is it hard to buy turtlenecks?
Yeah. Does the mock turtleneck make you look crazy? All right, here we go. Here's another one.
Nick, you're a first-time coordinator. What is it that you think got you this job?
I think you'd have to ask Kyle and John and ownership. I think I was here. I understand the defense, familiarity with it, with the guys, and how we play, what's expected. I think we all know what we expect out of the defense and our team. So probably have to ask Kyle about that.
All right. So he kind of begged off that one, and then he kind of wound up answering it anyway, which is, I mean, it doesn't necessarily inspire tons of confidence. I was here. I know the defense. I know the guys.
I was in the room.
I was in the room when they were looking for a guy, and I happened to know the guys and know the defense. I mean, in a way, he kind of answered it directly because that is the reason he got the job. Most likely is that the players like him, the players wanted him, and they wanted continuity. They didn't want to bring in another guy from the outside, force him to coach a scheme he's doesn't know. I mean, they brought in Brandon Staley, but they didn't make him the defensive coordinator. Why? Because he doesn't run their scheme. He runs a different scheme. And it's one thing to say, Brandon, come on in here and put another set of eyes on this and be kind of a jack of all trades. And I almost feel like Brandon Staley's there in case this whole thing falls apart, because Staley's actually done it at a pretty high level and had success. Where Sorensen has never been a coordinator. But I think Sorensen's answer was accurate. One, he said, hey, you got to ask Kyle and John, which is a little bit of a beg out, cop out kind of a thing to say. Of course, why you think you got it. Of course, I can get the definitive word from them. I'm asking you why you think you got this job. And then after he said his initial thing, he came back with, well, I was there. I know the defense. I know the players. So I think that's really it. That's probably the answer. So,
well, I don't think we need to be that worried about an opening press conference any more than we need to be worried about, a completion percentage from the first day of training camp. But yeah, you never get a second chance to make a first impression.
It wasn't Jim Tom Sula. People have said, oh, he sounds like Jim Tom Sula. No, he didn't.
No.
Jim Tom Sula sounded like a fish out of water. This guy did not sound like a fish out of water.
When he got to talking about Renardo Green going inside first, is that a, hey, Womack, you're gonna have trouble making this roster if you don't have a really good camp?
Well, I mean, anytime you're adding guys to the mix, they have 8 or 9 legitimate corners, and I know they're only going with 5. So that means 3 of those guys, are going to have to beat it. And it's probably not going to be Renardo Green, right? He's probably going to make the team because he was the second-round pick. So, yeah, Womack's got real talent. Luter's got real talent. Those guys, I expect those guys to rise up and start to play better and start to be a bigger part of this thing. Last summer, if I had told you, hey, look at Womack, look at Lenore, tell me what you think, you would have said, man, they're both having amazing camps. And that was true. And then Lenore went on and had a great, amazing year. And Womack almost was a non-factor all the way down the stretch. So, and he had a couple injuries. But, I think it sounds like they want to go with Renardo inside and Mooney outside to start. We'll see how that looks once the bullets start flying, because I think Lenore's value is that he's become a very good, hard-hitting tackler. And if you're playing the slot corner, you're essentially, replacing the strong side backer. And the base goes from like a 4-3 look to a 4-2-5 look. But you as the slot corner oftentimes are inside the tackle box and oftentimes have to put your head in there and make tackles against the run. And Lenore did an incredible job of that last year. Green's only 185 pounds and he's a willing hitter. He loves to hit, but I think ultimately Lenore will be that nickel.
I think we're looking at an evolution of a position there too. Like a few years from now, will we even be calling it nickel corner, or will be, like coming up with some new level of safety, new level of linebacker? It feels like that position's becoming more hybrid than ever before.
Yeah, well, the league is passing more and more. The league's if you look at the stats, the league in the last 3 to 4 years has gone from 68% sub package to over 75% sub package, in some cases 80% sub package. So The sub package is the new base. The nickel corner is now more vital than the third linebacker in a 4-3 front. That's why the Niners let Azeez Al-Shaair walk, because he was only playing 25% of the snaps or so, not even. So they're like, why are we going to pay this guy big bucks when he plays 25% of the snaps?
So beyond rookie minicamp, us knowing that we're going to get Chiefs and Ravens first Thursday night game of week 1, not a lot of NFL news from over the weekend. So, Larry, I think I've fired officially all my arrows that I had for you. You got anything left in the quiver that you feel you got to get out from your impressions of minicamp?
Yeah, I mean, there were some other guys who stood out. Let me go to my trusty notes from minicamp. Okay, couple. I did a player comparison. I did a video where I comped each player to a player in the league. Jacob Cowing looks terrific. He is a 5'8", 175-pound, as Scott McLuhan called him, a lightning bolt, and he looked fantastic. And he kind of reminds me of Calvin Austin of the Steelers. Maybe a little Rondale Moore, but he's not quite as fast and a little bit not quite as thick as Rondale. He's kind of reminds me of Calvin Austin, but he just looks super dynamic out on the football field. Really, really impressed by him. He to me is once again the guy he's going to make an impact right away. I mean, he really is impressive.
Did you get any impressions at all out of Tariq Owens, or are they just being nice to, Terrell?
Yeah, I mean, Tariq. Tariq Owens is a pro athlete.
Player in him?
Yeah, I mean, he's so raw that it's going to take him a year or two, I would guess, to really acclimate. But if he can make the team as a practice squad guy this year, stay in the system, I think he's a guy that next July could really look like something. He really could contribute. And then I think the Ricky Pearsall, a lot of people are like, you hate Ricky Pearsall. And I'm like, no, I do not hate Ricky Pearsall. I'm just not going to sing the praises of a guy who went to minicamp, ran some patterns, ran them well, was targeted, half dozen times, and didn't really catch the ball, didn't really stand out. He just didn't stand out. Now, he does stand out for his route running and his footwork and his precision and his hands, and you can see the refinement. Yeah, you can see the refinement. Yeah, but once again, it's like you can't look at the stats because he's got a guy from Davidson throwing him the ball, and I saw at least 2 of the balls were just so. One was 20 feet over his head, one was 12 feet over his head. It's like he's not catching either of those balls. I comped him to Danny Amendola, and a lot of people are like, you hate him. You obviously hate Pearsall. You compared him to Danny Amendola. Danny Amendola, though, when he was going well, was pretty damn good. Yeah, he was a 2-time Super Bowl champion. He had a 14-year NFL career. He did play on 7 teams, but he led the NFL in kickoff return yards in 2009. It's not like he's a bum. And when you look at Amendola, now Amendola is not the athlete that Pearsall is. Amendola ran 4.7. He had a 27.5-inch vertical. Pearsall runs 4.4 and has a 42-inch vertical. So they're not the same caliber athlete. But as far as elite short area quickness, kind of, reeks of a slot receiver, elite ball skills, and the kind of stop and start ability that loses NFL corners, that shakes NFL corners. And they both remind me of the standpoint of Amendola could shake anybody. He with the stops and the starts and the ins and the outs and the footwork, and he could just lose anybody. I watched him against Carlos Rogers in a game when the Rams played the Niners, where Carlos Rogers could not stay with this guy, could not mirror him up and down the field because the footwork and the stop and the start, it was just too much. It was too much for Rodgers to take. But what Amendola's issue is the same issue that Pearsall has, is that his footwork, his stop and start, his all the nuance to his route running creates space, but the lack of NFL, real speed and quickness kind of make him so he creates space, but then they close it quickly. So Amendola created space, but then the Carlos Rogers of the world, after he makes his move, they can close the space down. And that's what I saw with Pearsall, is that he's got great hands, great footwork. You can see the refinement in his game, but then you can also see where he can free himself up, get to an open space. Now here comes that corner again to blanket him, because he doesn't really have separation speed or quicks. It's all about footwork, and he can lose guys, but then they can kind of catch up and close that cushion. So he'll beat you off the line because he's slithery and quick, but then as soon as he gets 3 steps into his pattern after the line, most NFL corners are going to be able to close that space down on him. So I liked what I saw, but all I would say to people is pump the brakes. He kind of reminds me a little bit of an Odell Beckham, in that he's got great ball skills, rare hands, really, really good catch it in a crowd, feel the soft spot in the zone, but he also doesn't have that extra gear that when he gets separation, he's gone. He's not gone. He's separated from you, but he's totally gettable, and that's what I'm seeing from Ricky Pearsall. So, what does that mean? That just means that I think he's going to get open, and Brock's going to see windows and get him the ball, but it's not going to be like he beats a guy and then the guy's in a trail position and he just can't make up the ground. Speedy corners in the NFL are going to get beaten by Ricky Pearsall. And then once he starts getting into step 3, 4, 5 of his route, they're going to catch up and they're going to close that ground. And I'm not saying that he's slow, but he's just not right. He doesn't have that extra gear that once he separates, you're never, you're on to the next play. You may, you're going to run with this guy, but as soon as he separates, you're not going to run with him on this play. He's going to separate, and then you're going to close that up on him.
That's what we were talking about on Friday. The thing that always rookies walk away with as an impression is just like speed. And the thing is, Pearsall still hasn't met a starting NFL corner yet. He's never had a single rep against a starting NFL corner. So, yeah, there'll be a steep learning curve, and he's going to find out what professional cornerback speed really is. And, overcoming all that is what you do in your rookie year. Yeah. Can you fit in this league? How do you fit in this league? What are your strengths? What are your attributes? How can Kyle get the best out of you? What are your impressions?
Don't fall for the he looked bad group, because there's a lot of people that are throwing out that he looked bad. No, he didn't look bad. He just doesn't have that gear to, once he separates, to then further separate.
Look, anybody trying to walk away from day one of a rookie mini camp with a definitive evaluation is a I don't want to say a bad faith.
Ambitious. It's a little ambitious.
Yeah, you're a little ahead of yourself there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Shanahan, what was his demeanor like? Where was he on the field? Was he hanging out with the quarterbacks? Was he with the wide receivers? Was he with the running backs? I know that Kyle didn't have an official media, hey, how are you? Did he do a little scrum with reporters at any point in time? How's Kyle looking? How's the salt and pepper going?
No scrum. He did what a head coach should do. He hung out in the middle of the field, and he let his assistants run the practice, and he just kind of observed as he huddled with Lynch and some of their top scouts. I think a lot of the Niners scouts were there. A lot of the guys who, the head of college scouting, both of the new guys who were replacing Peters were both out there. They had a group of their scouts, looked like walking around. But yeah, their assistant coaches were running the show, and he was just kind of getting the bird's eye view. We didn't talk to him, so we don't know what impressions that he got, but he definitely placed himself in the middle of the field so he could get a look at both. They have 2 different fields. The defense was on the far field. So yeah, there's nothing really to express. He didn't have any outward signs of frustration or elation or anything like that. But overall, I think they felt pretty good. Nobody got hurt. They definitely have added some talent to their roster. I was looking at a list today, Damon, of the guys who are no longer with the Niners, and it's who they lost Eric Armstead. Okay,
Yeah.
other than that, listen to the departure list from the Niners. Oren Burks, okay,
Sure.
Sam Darnold,
no problem.
Cleveland Farrell,
Doesn't
not
really
bad.
matter.
Randy Gregory didn't do a whole lot. Javon Kinlaw, same. Ray McLeod, same. Matt Pryor never saw the field. Chase Young, that's the departure list.
Finally, Willie Snead will be able to go somewhere and flourish after being repressed by the 49ers. Lack of practice day competition.
But I mean, they didn't lose a lot. I mean, they lost Armstead. But if you look at they've lost Greenlaw to an injury until he gets healthy, and we'll see when that is, and when he returns, what does he return as?
I think they're going to miss Charlie Warner as a blocking tight end, maybe more than they're going to miss Eric Armstead as a defensive lineman. I mean, Warner.
Not more. I mean, I think Armstead they're going to miss. I mean, Armstead was a really good player. He was their best player against the run in their front seven. He did several things that were really high end that people didn't notice, like staying in his rush lanes against Jalen Hurts in that Philly game. Hurts did not. They took away Hurts's running game in that game, and a lot of that was Armstead kind of filling in, balancing out that line while in mid rush he sees Bosa shoot up the field. Well, then he shoots the other area and kept Hurts hemmed in the pocket. So in some ways they miss a lot with Armstead, but look what they've gained. Devondre Campbell. They added Josh Dobbs, who I think is a more athletic quarterback than Darnold. Jordan Elliott, love Jordan Elliott. Leonard Floyd, love Leonard Floyd. Ezekiel Turner, good special teamer. Yatir Gross-Matos, Rock Ya-Sin, Isaac Yadam, and then, of course, Ricky Pearsall, Renardo Green, Jacob Cowing, Dominic Pooney. So, they to me, they definitely, this, have they gotten better? Have they gotten worse? I think they've gotten better. I think the Niners have gotten better than they were a year ago, which is hard to do because they were in the Super Bowl.
Saw Brandon Aiyuk hustling his rear end off with some routes, some out of the building practice routes that he was running on some field somewhere. UC Santa Barbara might have been the field that he was at. UC Davis, I don't know. Wasn't UC Davis, but
he's from Rockland, so maybe it was UC Davis.
Maybe it was. I don't know. But man, I'll tell you, pay that dude. I mean, Brandon Aiyuk running in shorts around cones is a fun watch.
You froze on me. You froze on me for a second there.
Uh-oh. Am I back?
Yeah. Well, you were frozen. You froze a couple times there.
All right.
You're back. Yeah. Well,
you've been glitching out a little bit too, but I haven't called you out on it once. That's all right. We're going to reset your router when this show is over here, Larry. But man, I saw some really impressive footage from Brandon Aiyuk. We know what he can do. I think job number one now, between training camp really beginning, is just getting that guy paid and in the building again, and just getting this, not that there was offseason acrimony, but just getting this negotiation in the rearview mirror, get him back on the field. Let's start playing football. I guess they got to still get Pearsall signed, right? There are a handful of rookies that still haven't got a contract done. That'll happen quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the old days. The old days, there was always rookie holdouts. Now it's all slotted and everything. There's not a lot of negotiation to be done there. It will get done. I mean, he must have signed some waiver because he was out there on the field. And generally, they don't get out on the field unless there's something signed. So maybe there was some rookie waiver that they signed for camp. But yeah, I mean, getting the whole group together. If you say just to me, they're better at quarterback because Purdy's going to be better. They're deeper at running back. They're deeper at wide receiver. They're deeper on the O-line. The D-line's a little bit of a question. The linebacking is a little bit of a question, even though there's talent there. The safety is definitely a question mark as well. So, but yeah, I mean, it's a really good football team. I saw, I was looking at the odds for the divisions, and the Niners are the favorite to win the division. They are minus 195 to win the NFC West. The Rams are the second choice at plus 330. The Seahawks are the second choice at plus 700, and Arizona's plus 1,300. So, I mean, the Niners are the far and away favorite to win the NFC West.
I'll tell you what, Niners are one injury away from the Rams coming home on that bet, though. I think I might, just in terms of where's your gambling dollar value best expressed, I think I like the Rams there.
At plus 330?
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, they're
not bad, Larry. They're not.
I'll tell you the worst one I'm looking at is in the NFC East. Dallas is plus 130 and Eagles are plus 130. And then you got the Commanders at plus 750. I think Dallas, is, to me, that's a bad play at plus 130. And I love the Commanders at plus 750. Detroit's plus 150, Green Bay's plus 210, and Bears are plus 285, Vikings plus 1,000 in the NFC North. So the Falcons are favored to win the NFC South. In the AFC, it's Bills, Chiefs, Ravens, Texans are your favored teams. Kansas City's minus 225, Chargers are plus 300. So, yeah, the Chiefs and the Niners are the big favorites inside their divisions.
Well, they should be. They're two really good teams. They're really well coached. They're well built. They got good quarterbacks. Let's go. Let's get this freaking schedule on Wednesday, and then we're going to know how this entire year is going to play out. Here's the thing. We won't even need to play football. Once we see the schedule, we'll know everybody's record, and why even bother with the games? Let's just go right to the playoffs. Like and subscribe. Larry, I really don't have much more on the Niners today. We got a little baseball, a little basketball to talk about. So you ready to turn the corner?
Sure.
All right.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Jung Hoo Lee's dislocated shoulder might not be ready to turn any corners anytime soon. He's going to have an MRI, but he dislocated, crashing into an outfield wall on Mother's Day. Just the day before, Michael Conforto hit the injured list. We've got Austin Slater on the concussion list. Jorge Soler is on the injured list. Nick Ahmed is out right now, and a not very good Giants team is now having trouble staying healthy. They basically lost their outfield this weekend, and I'm not going great. Elio Ramos, this is your shot, kid. If you get sent back down, demand a trade or something. I don't know.
He's really good. He's playing well.
Yeah,
Elliot Ramos is really damn good. I mean, it's embarrassing that he's been in the minors this long with this shitty of a major league outfield in front of him. I mean, what the fuck are they doing? I mean, this guy's got the best bat speed. He's got the best power. He's got the best throwing arm. He's so much better than their outfielders. I mean, it took injuries to get this guy to the big leagues. I mean, but Austin Slater can be sitting there for 6 weeks hitting a .03, and he just is sitting there growing his May mustache as Ramos is mired in the minor leagues. And all these people are like, well, Ramos has gotten shots. Ramos hasn't gotten any shots at all. It's embarrassing. And now Farhan's only putting him up there because he's forced to. And it's like, let's just be honest here. Farhan's not that great at what he does. I mean, let's just be totally honest about this. He doesn't know who he's got that's good. He doesn't know who other teams have that he needs. He's not a good evaluator of talent. He kissed off Joey Bart for Tom Murphy. Tom Murphy's not as good as Joey Bart, and he's more expensive, and he's older, and you could have had Joey Bart sitting on the bench and Bart would be playing. Instead, no, you devalue Bart. You don't build him up. You hand him away for nothing. Now he's in Pittsburgh outplaying Tom Murphy. So obviously that didn't go well. You're sitting there with Ramos. Ramos has been, doing absolute huge talent, and you're not giving him any time at all. It's like only when you're forced to does he get any talent or get any play at all. Well, and you've got nobodies like Yaz and Slater that nobody wants, that no team no contending team in baseball would start Mike Yastrzemski or Austin Slater in their outfield. The Giants are starting both. The Giants and they signed those guys in November. Like that was their plan. Like they clogged their roster with Slater and Yaz before they sought out trades with the full free agent market. So, and then as far as Jung Hoo, well, no, that was an ugly break.
Hold on. While you're on that subject, let me just say, you know how we said that the 49ers do a really good job by walking away from the walk-away guys and making sure they keep the investment of the guys that they want in the building? The Giants are the opposite of that. The Giants and Farhan doesn't understand that he can get a level of production out of just about any minor league call-up than he's getting from some of these guys that he considers established major leaguers. Like you said, no other team in contention would consider Austin Slater to be an established major leaguer. The problem, I think, for the Giants is this illusion of this bullshit. They're not contending. They're not contending this year. They're not even close. And that alone should mean Mike Yastrzemski, no matter how good of a 4 games in a row he might have had, by the way, that disintegrated. He took an 0 for yesterday. But every single at-bat remaining in the 2024 season should be made with 2026 in mind. The Giants need to admit where they are and who they are and stop overspending to be at best a middling team and finally turn it over to the next generation of let's find it out. And they just don't do it. To remain in this vacuum of contention illusion, they're fooling themselves. And that's Farhan's biggest
and there's all kinds of their fans also just, I don't even know what to say. It's like they're too accepting of bad ball, I mean, and there's just not enough really sharp people out there either running this team or supporting this team. There's tons of people that told me last week that Casey Schmidt was horrible. Casey Schmidt had the game-winning hit yesterday. Casey Schmidt can play the hell out of the left side of the diamond. They're playing him short now.
First hit of the year.
He's only been up for 2 days. He's been up for 2 days. I mean, that's why it's his first hit of the year, because he's been up. He's been in the minors the whole year.
You had to sign Nick Ahmed. Got to get that guy in there.
But I mean, forget Ahmed. It was about Chapman. They gave Chapman, Schmidt's job, and now Chapman is basically hitting whatever he's hitting, 210 or 215 or whatever, 205 or. I mean, Schmidt could hit 205 and play good defense too, and that was my point, which is why I was in favor of them just going with Schmidt and trying to spend that money somewhere else. No, they decided that, they needed a big name free agent. Nobody wants to sign with them. The one guy that had experience with Melvin was willing to potentially sign with them, even though it took them months and months and months and months to get it done. So they, the Matt Chapman, Farhan had the Matt Chapman. He can't attract free agents. He can't get free agent deals done. So he's got to lean on who wants to play for my manager. And, Chapman, whose stats are way down. He hasn't hit over 250 in 4 years. So it's going to be 5 after this. Was out there without a lot of home. No home. Giants are, Boris knows Giants have deep pockets. They would dramatically overpay for him and did. But I mean, he just blocked Casey Schmidt. And then you pick up Nick Ahmed to block, Marco Luciano. So now instead of having Schmidt and Luciano, 2 young guys on the left side of your infield, you've got Ahmed and Chapman. and you're trying desperately to contend when you're not a contender. You're not going to contend with weak hitting Chapman, weaker hitting Ahmed on the left side. So then it's like you look up in you're a month and a half into the season, you're like, we have no offense from our infield. Well, surprise, surprise.
By the way, do you see the ghosts of bad decisions just knock over all the books on my it's like my top shelf of my bookshelf just had a little book quake.
Really?
Yeah, everything just slipped over.
Everything just fell over?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. See what happens when you talk bad about the Giants, Larry?
Yeah. So, I mean, the Giants, I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's like their fans defend every move that Farhan makes. Like Farhan's fucking a great GM. When in reality, Chris Russo went on their postgame show last week and said he should be fired. He should be shit canned. So, but don't tell Giants fans. They're like, I mean, they're still arguing that, that they don't need it. I mean, literally when I was saying, hey, go get Cody Bellinger, go get Rhys Hoskins. They're like, Rhys Hoskins is not as good as Wade and Flores together. All right. I mean, in what statistical world is that a reality? Now, Wade's had a good first half.
Right.
But, I mean, he's kind of a platoon guy. He's not a great defensive player. He doesn't hit for tons of power. So he's kind of an on-base guy, and he's getting on base. So good for him. But they don't – I mean, you're telling me that's better than Rhys Hoskins? That's not better than Rhys Hoskins. And they don't need Cody Bellinger. They've got, Yaz and Slater. And when I said Slater sucks, people are like, Slater's the best outfielder they have. I mean, it's like, what? What are we talking about? So everything's got to be this, like, we love them, it's like the announcers, like, I went to Stanford and he went to Stanford. Let's just suck each other. I mean, that's what's going on there. And it's like, so I've got to hear every day how great Slater is, only to then go look at the average and see, oh, he's hitting 105 with no power. And he doesn't really steal bases that much anymore. And he's not that great. I mean, it's like, right. So what are we talking about? So Slater's not good. And then Yaz, I've had people tell me in the last, Yaz is the best outfielder they have in the last month. It's like, that's more of an indictment on their outfield than it is on a statement about Yaz. I mean, right. He was ice cold early. He's hit under 230 like 3 years in a row. He was a career minor leaguer who didn't make it to the majors till he was 28. And the Giants got 3 or 4 good years out of him. And unlike everybody else who takes career minor leaguers and gets 3-4 good years out of them, the Giants then get into this alternate reality.
Right. Hashtag forever Giants. I mean,
they make these great stories, terrible stories. Marvin Bernard was a 56th round pick. He was a great story. He made the major leagues. But the Giants, unfortunately, were the ones who got laughed at because they're the ones who gave him an $11 million extension and let him off and put him in center field. He didn't belong as your leadoff hitter and center fielder. He was a 56th round pick. Pedro Feliz was a good story. They got him. He was a late bloomer. They got 2 or 3 nice years out of him. But, late in his career, they're asking him to like hit 3, 4, 5 in the middle of the lineup. He was never going to be more than a 7-hole hitter. So it's just like they get into these modes where they take good stories, and there's no question. Yaz was a good story. He was in the minors at 27. The Giants rescued him. They got a couple good years out of him. He's now hit under 225 3 years in a row. It's over.
He's about to be. He turns 34 in August. He's got the worst on-base percentage of his career. It was never a great on-base percentage, no matter what. He's a good outfielder, and that's about it. Yastrzemski plays a decent outfield.
He's a 5th outfielder. On a championship team, he's a 5th outfielder.
Yeah.
On this team, he's a 3rd outfielder. He's a starter.
Yeah. And he might be hitting
they just got to figure it out.
He might be hitting 3rd. Yeah. It's time for the Giants to get a whole bunch of new eyes on what's going on. They don't have a lot.
But
there's not a lot of
Jung Hoo's thing.
The best baseball team in the Bay Area is the Oakland A's. Without a doubt.
There's no doubt.
The A's,
they can hit.
They're young. They are. I mean, if the A's,
awesome closer.
What's funny is the polar opposites of these. The Giants don't have very much, and they've thrown more money and bad decisions at not having very much, and they walk away without very much. The A's, meanwhile, aren't even trying to win. They aren't even trying to spend, and they keep on stumbling into better than expected player, guy who's overproducing, guy who's playing really well. The Giants are like devoid of anyone being a great story. I saw this from CBS. This was going into Mother's Day. The Giants went into Mother's Day with an 18-23 record and a minus 40 run differential, the 5th worst in the National League. They're scoring the 6th fewest runs per game at 3.63, and they're allowing the 9th most runs per game at 4.71. If a player isn't hurt, the chances are he's underperforming. And that says it perfectly. That's it. You either got a guy who is injured and can't even go, or the healthy guys are out there and they ain't going right. So that's your Giants right now. By the way, Dodgers in town. Dodgers and Giants tonight. It is a good pitching matchup with Yamamoto going against Jordan Hicks, who has been the best story of the San Francisco Giants this year.
I mean, and then the kick to the gut yesterday was the Jung Hoo Lee injury, because he didn't just bang. It's not like he ran into the outfield wall and banged his shoulder.
Right.
He got his elbow caught in the fence and he dislocated the shoulder. And the MRI is going to show a dislocation. And, you can, from what I've read, from Dr. Pandya on Twitter, he says that if it doesn't require surgery, you're still looking at, probably 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be pain involved and he's going to have to be pain free and all the. So if it doesn't require surgery, 6 to 8 weeks. If it does require surgery, it's more like, probably 10 to 12 weeks. And that means he's done for the year. And, once again, that's like, so you go sign the guy from the KBO. He has a couple hot weeks. Now his average was down to like 250, 260. And now he bangs into the wall and suffers a freaky type injury that not only hurts him, but it's the kind of injury that, who knows? Shoulder injuries, especially separations, they don't always heal right. Not only could this guy be out for the year, he could be diminished as far as what he is going forward. And they've got him on the hook where he's got an out after year 4, I believe, but they don't have any outs. So they're going 6 years at $19 million for a guy a leadoff hitter who's not going to hit 15 home runs, not going to steal 15 bases. He's going to play a good center field, but now has a dislocated shoulder, which is more of like a football injury than a baseball injury, and a gigantic question mark hovering above him. And if they don't have, he has been a bright spot. Why? Because he can play the hell out of center field. He can run, even though he doesn't steal bases. He's got bat speed. He's, he was better than I thought. I'll freely admit that. But my original take was he's not worth $19 million. And if a guy hits 260 and doesn't hit 10 home runs and doesn't steal 10 bases, he's not worth $19 million. So I'll stay with my original. He's not worth $19 million because he's not worth $19 million. They got taken for a huge walk by Boris on the contract, but he still was a nice player. He still was a young player. He still had a good on base percentage. He still had a good eye at the plate. He was a very good defensive center fielder. So, they lose a lot, even though I don't think he's worth $19 million. He still was a very good player. And now they've lost him most likely for the year, and it's May. So, that is as bad as it gets right there. So, I would say the Giants, now without Jung Hoo, they were looking totally overmatched. At some point, outside of Hicks, the rest of Farhan's offseason moves have been atrocious. Now, I like the Jorge Soler pickup, but he has not heated up yet.
And
Chapman's been awful. Snell's been worse. Lee's hurt. It makes you wonder if Farhan's going to finish the year. I realize Farhan just got an extension to go, to align with Melvin. But I mean, I think we'll see. We'll see. I think there's a better than 50-50 chance that he doesn't last the year. That'll be my guess.
I guarantee you he lasts the year because he's getting the job done as far as the Giants are concerned. He's, they're making enough money. They allowed him to spend that money. They wouldn't have allowed him to spend that money if they knew they weren't making money. Their attendance is up a little bit. They're just going to pop it on cruise control and let that ballpark be pretty enough to draw a crowd, and it will. And I don't feel that there's
they draw on Saturday and Sunday, and the Dodgers. They didn't draw for the Reds for shit. I mean, I was watching those Reds games. There was all kinds of empty seats on the lower deck.
Look, man, they're up 11%. I saw that. So, that.
But I mean, let's see where this is in August, especially without Jung Hoo. I mean, because he was their big signing, and now it looks like he could be done for the year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're just, I don't know what to say. It's like, you're right. They're not out of it because nobody's out of it, because it's baseball and you can't get out of it. Yeah, literally, you'd have to lose every game before you're out of it.
Just like most of the players, he's inconsequential. Like, you keep Farhan around or don't. Like, it doesn't even really matter. He's just good enough to barely get the job done. He's also easily replaceable. I wouldn't contend to know more about baseball than a major league general manager, but I'm going to tell you, from a guy who came in with every single chart ever written about baseball from an MIT book and all these, advanced calculus degrees that he's got and all of this is why he's so good, blah, 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 blah. I could do just as good a job as Farhan. Like I'm looking for a better paycheck than I got right now. I'll take half the money and do the exact same fucking job as that guy. Do you want to be 9 games back in May? I could do that. I could do that, Larry. I could do that.
Well,
I could be 9 games back in May.
Yeah, I mean, stop telling me that this guy's the smartest guy in the room. He doesn't even understand the basic tenets of sales, which is you underpromise and overdeliver. He's constantly overpromising and underdelivering. So if you don't even understand the basic tenets of sales, your job is to sell. Your job is not just to have a plan. Your job is to sell your plan to agents, other players, your players, and your fans. Well, guess what? He's in year 6. They may have a little uptick in attendance this year, but attendance is down dramatically under his watch. So he hasn't done a good job of selling the fans on his vision. You just had your best player, Logan Webb, basically say this is a shit show in the clubhouse the other day. So I don't know that you've sold your players on your direction. Based on your free agent track record, you have not sold opposing players on your vision, and you haven't sold opposing agents on your vision. If anything, you've gotten taken for a ride by a power agent in Boris.
What is
look
plan?
What you paid for Snell and Lee, and look what you've gotten out of it.
What's the plan? The plan is we platoon a lot. Like, is that that's who you are? Your identity?
The plan of originally was supposedly we're going to build up our farm system, but it's year 6, and farm system has not been built up. They've landed a couple guys, and their announcers will tell you all about the couple guys they've gotten. But the independent evaluators of farm systems, and there's like 3 or 4 credible ones in the country, they all rank the Giants as the lowest rated farm system in their division.
Yep. And
this is year 6 of Farhan. So, they got lucky that one year, and it was truly lucky. I mean, it was a truly lucky year. And it was all Sabian's guys with Buster and Crawford and Belt and Longoria, and all of Sabian's guys had one big last year. They added Gaussman, and they caught lightning in a bottle in the middle of the pandemic and this and that, coming out of the pandemic, and teams weren't quite. I mean, they shocked everybody.
Right. They had to catch the league flat foot. They had to catch the league.
That was the aberration.
Fast.
Right. But that was the aberration. That was the outlier.
Right.
Ever beyond that, it's been losing and sub 500 tons of minor league trades, incremental improvement, the fans getting, disenchanted by the lack of name quality guys. I mean, they literally went from an era where they didn't have to put the names on the back to you better get the names on the back or nobody's going to know who anybody is.
Right. And unfortunately, it's the wrong font because the Nike jersey sucks, so no one can even still see the names. So you might as well take the names back off the jerseys anyway. Wrapping up with this, Larry, both the Nuggets and Pacers have come back from the dead in what, 0-2 holes? The Pacers get home, and they have taken 2 in a row off the Knicks, who are just at the end of their player availability and minutes allowed to go. I mean, they just, Thibodeau has played these guys so much, so hard. And look, it's the playoffs. You play as much as you can. But that's catching up with them. The Nuggets, who just looked like they were ready to go home after dropping 0-2, go into Minnesota, take 2 in a row. Now the Nuggets are officially reminding everyone who the defending NBA champ is. So we got a little bit more interesting left in the Western Conference than we thought we had. Decent series going on between Dallas and Oklahoma City as well. Boston is just humiliating Cleveland every single time I look. It's an unwatchably tilted series at this point. But we're getting down to the nitty-gritty in the NBA, and some pretty interesting stuff is happening.
Yeah, Minnesota is the one that's really, I mean, they went to Denver, took the first 2 games, played incredible defense on Jokic, had him totally looking overwhelmed. I mean, they were sending a second guy. Their rotations were timed perfect. Everything he wanted to do, they had a counter for. And then, Michael Malone's a really good coach, and they go to Minnesota and they blow them out in game 3 and win convincingly in game 4. And now good luck beating Denver. I would say it's Denver's series to lose. Minnesota's got awesome talent. But they just they just turned off the gas at the wrong time. It's like, and their home court is not a very good home court. Talk about not a hostile place to play, man. Minnesota, it's like everybody Denver just played they look so comfortable there. But yeah, I don't know what happened to Minnesota's game plan against Jokic. It's like they had Jokic defended so well in that they were playing him to score, forcing him to pass, but forcing him to pass it out on the perimeter. And then who's he throwing to? Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon and guys like that. And then it's like, if you're Minnesota, you'll live or die with those guys making perimeter shots. And instead, now Jokic, it seems like they've softened up on Jokic. They've eased up on the throttle. They're not necessarily choking him out. He seems like he's comfortable now with what defenses they're throwing at him, and he's making plays offensively.
He's just got that middle of the lane little like push hook shot that he's got where he sort of looks like he's putting a box of cereal back on top of the refrigerator. And that shot wasn't falling for him in the first 2 games. It did in games 3 and games 4. And hey, we got a series. By the way, it feels like it just crept up with very little fanfare, but the NBA's draft lottery happened. And for the first time in their franchise's history, the Atlanta Hawks will be drafting number 1 overall. They had a 3% chance to get the number 1 overall pick. Only 4 teams have ever won the lottery with slimmer odds than what Atlanta had in this lottery. And congratulations for them. And I guess this goes hand in hand with being the Atlanta Hawks. Bad year to win the lottery. It really is. There is no definitively accepted number 1 overall pick, which means there isn't a true, honest to God, no doubt about him, blue chip level talent. Right now they're saying that a French center named Alex Sarr could be the number 1 overall pick. I don't know much about Alex Sarr.
I got nothing to tell you there. 7'1" long athlete. Yeah. I mean, it's a down year for the draft. I think, there's a few teams that have options to take a pick this year or defer to the future, and they're going to defer to the future. I actually was saying that the Warriors, who had like a 1.7% or 1.2% chance of landing in the top pick, that if they wanted to contend this offseason, that they needed to win the lottery. And people were like, oh, no, you're wrong. It's a down year. They need to take that pick next year. They need to make sure that Portland takes their pick this year and not next year. Okay, but that might be the way to get that may be the way to get the better player in the draft in a year, but that's not going to make the Warriors contenders next year. The Warriors needed to win that lottery so they could have traded that lottery pick with a player or two and landed that big player that they so desperately need. Instead, they didn't win. That pick now goes over to Portland. So the Warriors only are armed with a late second-round pick.
It's 52nd
I don't know how
overall. Their only selection
in a
of
60-player draft.
Yeah, 52nd overall is where the Warriors rebuild begins, Larry.
But I mean, there are some options out there. One of the guys that I think would make perfect sense for them is Brandon Ingram from New Orleans, and it sounds like they're eager to move Brandon Ingram. Now there's 7 or 8 teams interested, but if they could somehow land a Brandon Ingram, that would be nice. If they could somehow move off of Wiggins, that would be nice. But I mean, it's going to be a real challenge for Golden State to put together, like I was looking at a potential deal that worked for Ingram, and it was like Chris Paul, Moses Moody, and a number 1. And I just don't think that's, I mean, even though Paul's a $30 million expiring and there's value in that.
I'm not coming off of Moody. I'm not coming off of Moody. I'm not. I mean, you need that guy to be your starting 2 guard.
Oh, you want to keep Moses Moody? Well, I'd move Moses Moody. I just don't think that that gets it done. I don't think that's the winning bid. I think there's too many teams that have too much interest in Brandon Ingram, and he's too talented to win a trade war bidding Moses, a first, and Paul. But we'll see. Maybe that's exactly what they want. Maybe they want a replacement small forward. Moody would be that. Maybe they want cap relief. Paul would represent that. Maybe they want a future number 1. The Warriors could probably swing that. And maybe a guy like Brandon Ingram, who's a true scorer, would be a fantastic combo forward and might be a perfect forward to play opposite Draymond Green. Maybe that's enough, but they need more. They need more than that. So it's going to be a very interesting off season for Dunleavy. And I like Dunleavy. I think, coming off of this last year where he got Trace Jackson Davis at 57 and he got Podziemski at whatever it was, 19 or 19, whatever.
Yeah.
That showed me something. And I kind of have a little bit more confidence in Dunleavy than maybe some people do. And we'll see what he can do, but they're not armed with a lot. They don't have a number 1. They don't really have any players in their prime. They don't want to move Kuminga. And everybody wants to steal every trade I've seen involving the Warriors in the last 2 years involves them trading Kuminga and like 4 or 5 other assets for somebody that I don't even think is as good as Jonathan Kuminga. I mean, like the latest trade I saw was Kuminga and like Wiggins and like, 2 1s and a pick swap for Mikal Bridges. It's got to be crazy.
Stop.
I would never do that. I would absolutely never do that.
No.
So I don't, it'll be interesting to see. Clearly there's a bunch of teams out there that would love to poach Jonathan Kuminga and probably Trace Jackson Davis as well from Golden State. And we'll see if they're disciplined enough and focused enough and smart enough to say, you know what, get lost.
From a financial standpoint, they can't get rid of Trace Jackson Davis. He could literally play himself into the most best contract in the NBA if he hasn't already. I mean,
and Kuminga too. I mean, I'm not moving Kuminga. You got to be kidding me. I mean, this guy's he's 21 years old, and look at how much better he is at 21 than he was at 19. Imagine if he's half as improved at 23, you're going to be looking at a very, very good NBA player. So you'd be stupid to move him.
I'm not trading Jonathan Kuminga. I'm not doing it, Tommy. I'm not doing it. I'm going to take him. I'm going to take him in my Mayada. I'm going to make sure that he stays with the Golden State Warriors. They need young, athletic players who are not afraid to attack the rim. Everybody on this team can't even make a fucking layup. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm keep Jonathan Kuminga.
You know, Ralph, the thing about Kuminga is he's healthy. And I've never been one to back healthy players. But I'll tell you, what he isn't is he's not a football guy, but he's a true basketball head. You know, I played a little basketball in my time. Ralph, you and I, maybe we'll go to Amici's, we'll get some lemon pepper wings, and then we'll go play horse. Go play horse. And you can see how Trent Baalke can shoot the rock.
Like and subscribe. Thank you very much. Back on Wednesday. Again, Larry, should we do a straight up wake up on Wednesday, or should we save our wake up for the afternoon and go live at 5 with the NFL schedule? What do you want to do? Because we could do a wake up. We could do a wake up on Wednesday, and the entire show is going to be like, so what do you think the schedule is going to look like that's coming out in a few hours from now? Or we could just wait until we have that information and do it in the afternoon.
Yeah, there'll probably be it's a TBD. Stay tuned.
Okay. All right. There you
TBD.
go. Here's the thing. If you hit that notify button, you won't miss anything. Like and subscribe to both channels. Thank you so much for watching. Oh, wait a minute. We do have a couple of super chats. This is from Kyle Benz saying Cowgirls Niners week 1. Why not Chiefs Niners? Well, how do we have that answer? Because I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. And we don't know that, by the way, it's Cowboys Niners week 1 Sunday Night Football.
Well, you said you had a source, I thought.
I said I had a rumor.
Okay.
A rumor. I don't pass off my rumors as sources. Let's see. Kyle is a student.
Who sang that song? Rumors going around every day. That was there was a couple of songs. Rumors. I forget the artist.
I don't know. You got me. Blood Moon. $2. Thank you very much. Larry and I can split that $1 each. Thank you. Kyle is
like trading places.
Yeah.
$1.
Kyle is a student of Bill, hence his staff follows. Look, Nick Sorensen not wanting to be the most informative, answer forward guy in his first ever press situation is, I'm not that surprised by it. I don't think we can take too much away from it. Farhan, he ruined the Giants. Brown nose weasel. I mean, I don't know if he's a brown nose weasel. I just know he's not very good. The results aren't good. And this is a results business. We're not handing out orange slices during the 7th inning stretch of a Little League game. Eventually, your record and your farm system have to matter. And the Niners' record is unimpressive. And the only thing that's more unimpressive is their farm system. So what would you say it is you do here, Farhan?
He's got a really nice laugh. He's kind of glib. And he's probably really good in a meeting. I don't know.
Here's the thing. He presents very smart. He has made a couple of good back of the roster moves, but he also went through this offseason, shit his pants, and then got tricked into spending way too much money on Blake Snell and way too much money on Matt Chapman, where you would have been better out finishing dead last in your own division and starting this whole thing over again. Dude, seriously.
Well, I mean, I don't want to hear any excuses. I don't, you have an incredibly rich organization. You've got an iconic brand. You've got one of the Major League Baseball's best stadiums. Your organization just won 3 World Series titles in a 6-year span or whatever, a 5-year span. Relatively recently. I mean, not like we got to go back in the history books. So I don't want to hear.
2014.
I don't want to hear about the excuses, and he's already kind of thrown out excuses. Players don't want to play in San Francisco, and this and that. It's like it's your job to sell your That's the one thing about Farhan is that baseball general managing is as much about the sale as it is about the science. And he's kind of painted as it's about the science, and he's, 10 times smarter than God. And so he's got the science down. Yeah, but he can't sell his program. And if you can't sell your program to players, you don't get players. He hasn't been able to sell his program to players or agents. He's not landing players. Then it's a matter of, well, what about creative trades? He doesn't make creative trades. Well, look, very few, very, very few. Robbie Ray was somewhat creative this year, where he moved some bad money for somebody else's bad money. But it's year 6.
Scott Boras.
What was his other creative trade? Zach Cozart took on Zach Cozart's ugly contract so he could get a middle infielder, Will Wilson, who's never broken through at the major league level. Other than that, so you've got a couple of creative trades and a bunch of nothing trades, and you can't sign free agents, and you've had 5 out of 6 years that you've been running the thing where it's been a loser. I don't know. It's like, you need to be more. We need more than that. You can't just be glib and pleasant to talk to. You have to actually produce results.
Yeah. No, and the Giants just get played as a sucker by the most powerful agent. And the thing, Scott Boras uses the Giants to make more money for his clients in other cities if they're also bidding. And it's also a dumping ground of the still too high-priced free agents that no other team wants. So the Giants really are Scott Boras's best friend.
Oh, no doubt. I would love to, if you want to say otherwise, find me the team that was offering Jung Hoo Lee $17 million a year, where the Giants went to 19.
Right.
Show me the other team that offered Blake Snell, something close to what he got.
Oh, by the way, Robert Prado's bailing you out here for the song. I was thinking Fleetwood Mac Rumors, but again, that's the name of the album, not any song that they did. Adele did a song called The Rumor Has It.
Yeah, Rumor Has It. Yes, I remember that was 2011 or whatever. But there was also a song, Rumors Going Round. This was like in the 90s or 90s, and I forget who it was. But anyway, yes. That the Adele version is the more recent version. There you go.
And there you go. Thank you very much for tuning in. Like, subscribe, and have a great day.
Have a great day, everybody. And remember, get out there and watch some Giants and some Dodgers. And I'm a football guy, but you know what? It's May. And in May, even football guys, you know what they do? They watch baseball.